Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Malia Ahmad. Today, the topic at hand is the limitations to students are a direct illustration of our First Amendment rights. The First Amendment, directly from the Constitution, states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to assemble peacefully and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Time, place, manner limitations are the specific clause that allow establishments such as schools and other organizations to limit how we exercise these First Amendment rights when in their premises. For example, there's some shops or yogurt shops or stores that say no shirt, no shoes, no service. Meaning if you don't walk into their store without a shirt or a shoe, you don't get service. Just like that, schools have time, place, manner limitations that we know as the Code of Conduct. Time, place, manner limitations, specifically from the legal documents, is defined as public convenience, restrictions that accommodate public convenience and promote order by protecting the administration of justice. TMP, which is time, place, manner, restrictions must be content neutral, be narrowly drawn, serve a significant government interest, and leave open alternative channels of communication. Application of this analysis varies in accordance with the circumstances of each case. This means that different schools and organizations are not allowed to discriminate based on one factor or one group of people. They have to make orders and limitations on a set group of people to promote the welfare of the public. The purpose of TMP is to provide, in schools specifically, is to provide an educational environment to keep situations neutral, to help students focus, and TMP is not only for students but also for teachers. Because if teachers, as they're not allowed to do so now, were to give their own political viewpoints and religious viewpoints, then students would not have the context of all the information available to them. They would only have the viewpoints of their teachers. They would not be able to formulate their own opinion, only what their teacher tells them. The OCPS Code of Conduct is listed here, and I will specifically break up pieces of this to tie into my argument, but just to have this here, I have it how OCPS demonstrates what students' rights are and how they expect students to carry out their responsibilities towards these rights. Tinker versus Des Moines. I'm sure we all use this in our essays and our presentations. The landmark case that helped establish TMP is when in 1969 students wore black armbands to represent their views on the Vietnam War, a war that impacted many and was a great grievance for many. Schools wanted Mary Beth Tinker to take off their armbands because they saw it as a disruption to normal school life and to students. When students refused, specifically Mary Beth Tinker, they threatened to suspend students. When this case was taken to the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Tinker 7-2. The court specifically ruled that students did not lose their First Amendment rights to freedom of speech when they stepped onto school property. In OCPS, this is affected and defined in OCPS as students have the right to express their views through speaking and writing, but without being obscene, disruptive, slanderous, or libelous. Students' responsibilities towards these rights are to respect the rights of others to express their own viewpoints. Another landmark case was Bethel District number 403 versus Fraser. This was a case in 1986 when a student wanted to promote his friend's SGA candidacy and used foul and vile, what the school saw as foul and vile language, to give his speech, inside of his speech in front of the masses. He gave this speech in front of administrators, students, and when this case was taken to court, when the student was suspended, it was voted in favor of the school 7-2. OCPS deals with this as students have the right to express their views through speaking and writing, but without being obscene, disruptive, slanderous, or libelous. The student's responsibilities is to respect the right of others to express their views. When using obscene language that was disruptive to the academic facility, this was a disruption. Another case, titled Morse versus Frederick, was when in off-campus activities, students held up this sign, "Bong Hits for Jesus," promoting illegal marijuana usage. Yes, it was an off-campus event, but the school was still gathered around, and it was still an event that was administered by the school's administration and principal. The Supreme Court had to make a ruling when it was off campus, which was new to them because they'd only ever dealt with cases that were on their campus. but it was still a school event. When we go to rival schools' football games, we are still responsible for holding up our school's representation and sportsmanship, exactly how we're supposed to represent it in an off-campus event. Students' rights are expressed as to assemble peacefully on school grounds while following federal, state, and local regulations. Students' responsibilities is to plan, get approval for, and conduct activities that are in line with the school's goals, according to OCPS. These students did not do that, however. This is the most recent case, and it is a more accurate representation because it falls in what society is facing today. Another case, Hazelwood School District versus Coli, excuse me for my pronunciation. A school found publications written by a student in the school newspaper inappropriate. They didn't want their students to be exposed to certain content that were in their publications. The Supreme Court voted in favor of the school 5-3 because the school has the right to censor what goes through their publication, as it is the direct representation of the school. The court specifically ruled schools retain the right to refuse to sponsor speech that was inconsistent with the shared values of civilized social order, meaning things that a school did not want broadcasted or talked about. They had the right to say, no, we don't want this in our publications. Students' rights, according to OCPS, are to help develop and distribute publications as part of the educational process. However, the responsibilities of students for these rights are to follow the rules of responsible journalism under the guidance of an advisor, including seeking complete information about the topics and refraining from publishing libelous or obscene material. Okay, an overview of everything I just said. The First Amendment is controlled by time, place, manner limitations, which allows different organizations, specifically schools, to control the usage of these First Amendment rights based on the greater good for the common people. Time, place, manner limitations were established by Supreme Court cases and different rulings, including all of the ones that I just went over were main landmark cases and other lower circuit cases as well. The OCPS Code of Conduct exploits the time, place, manner limitations in the way that time, place, manner allows OCPS to control everything students do on campus and sometimes off, as you saw in one of my cases. What questions may you have?
All right, first question. How valid and reliable were the sources that you used, and how do you know?
A lot of the sources I used were from EBSCO. They were academic journals or peer-reviewed journals, and 2 of the sources I believe were the ones that you provided for us.
And what might be a real-world implication or consequences of your findings?
What do you mean? I mean, sorry, can you reiterate that
Sure.
question?
What might be a real-world implication or consequence of what you talked about?
Of not following time, place, manner limitations, or of not having First Amendment rights?
Of your resolution, what might be a real-world implication of it?
A real world implication of it would be, maybe as I previously stated, the yogurt example or the store example, when you walk into a different organization or establishment and they say no service, no shoes, they don't give you service based on the fact that you don't have their specific regulations for being in that place, because they believe it's the common welfare to be dressed, to be presentable. So they have the right to say, no, we can't serve you because you don't follow our guidelines for time, place, manner limitations, even though it's in your First Amendment rights.
All right, cool, thanks.